I recently heard a shocking statistic that 95% of oil spilled in the ocean is deliberate. That's right, those major accidental oil spills you hear about are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to oil spills. And no, I'm not talking about that time when millions of gallons of oil was deliberately dumped into the Persian Gulf. I'm talking about every day, everywhere, and in this video, I'm going to show you why this happens, and at the end of the video, I'll give some suggestions about what the world can do about it, as well as what you personally can do about it. If you're new to this channel and want to learn about similar topics, subscribe to the channel down below. If you're not new here, welcome back. So why is oil being deliberately spilled into the ocean? When I first heard this statistic, the first thing I did was check what year it was based on, and it turned out it was from 1994. So I thought, okay, it has to be resolved by now, right? Well, not really. To better understand this issue, it helps to understand why deliberate ocean oil spills are happening in the first place. Oil tankers that ship oil across the world's waterways need to be cleaned after dropping off oil in order to get the clingy residue off the inside of the tank and machine rooms. Now, to do this, the tanks are typically sprayed with water and the oil waste is washed into the ocean. And while that clingage only represents about 0.4% of the total cargo, it adds up as ships everywhere, every day, discharge oil into the ocean. In 1983, there was an international convention held with the goal of minimizing deliberate ocean oil spills, among other things. Nearly all countries in the world signed the agreement and are supposed to be following its guidance regardless of where their ships are in the world. As you can see from this map, over 99% of the world's merchant fleets fall under this agreement, so this should mean that deliberate oil spills are a thing of the past. However, even under the agreement, there are certain situations where dumping oil is allowed. More on this later. Despite this international convention, large quantities of oil continue to be deliberately spilled into the ocean. One of the biggest reasons for these deliberate oil spills comes down to time and money. It costs oil tank operators a lot of money to keep their ships in port while cleaning the tank where the oil can be properly discharged and taken care of. So many ports will no longer charge ship operators to keep their ships at port to clean their tanks, which helps to save money but doesn't help to save time, as ship operators could be cleaning their tank while out at sea. To further help deter deliberate oil spills, monitoring technology has been developed to help find oil spills, determine if it's from a ship or not, identify that ship, track it down, and find them. As you could imagine, this isn't the most effective system. According to one study, only 4.5% of deliberate oil spills were matched back to a ship, and that's just of the ones identified. And to make matters worse, each country is responsible for its own surveillance and enforcement, and not all countries provide surveillance, which means in many cases nobody is watching. And even if someone was watching, most polluters won't face any penalties even after being caught, and if they do, penalties are typically low. If you're finding this topic interesting so far and want to learn about similar topics, hit that subscribe button. To make it even worse, going back to the international convention, dumping is actually perfectly legal under certain conditions. Basically, what this means is if you are a ship that is moving outside of special areas, you can dump 30 liters per nautical mile perfectly legally. As if surveilling and enforcing isn't complicated enough, this means you have to add in this step to determine if a spill is legal or not before identifying, tracking, and fining, and enforcing the fine if needed. To make matters worse still, oil spills can be hard to identify, and this is probably why you have never heard of this problem before. The technology currently in place often depends on optical scans, may it be from humans or cameras and computers. This makes it difficult to identify oil spills in situations like at night or on cloudy days or stormy days. Plus, if oil spills are not thick enough, they won't be detected. It's estimated that these oil spills will take just a couple of hours before they're no longer visible to aerial scanners, which means unless every part of the waterway is scanned every 2 hours or so, polluters won't get caught. All of this makes it very easy for polluters to deliberately spill oil into the ocean without being detected, let alone being tracked down and fined. Plus, so much information out there on the topic is either very brief news articles from small news outlets or in research papers that may or may not be free to read. So there really isn't a whole lot of easily accessible information on the topic. And while I couldn't find data on exactly how much oil is deliberately spilled into the ocean each year, the topic pops up in research studies everywhere from the Baltic, South Africa, China, Egypt. In fact, if you read these studies and look at the countries mentioned, or ones that have their waterways impacted by this kind of dumping, it's all of these countries. And a lot of this dumping happens within the special areas banned by the International Convention, as well as along the coasts of countries who signed the convention. And these are just of the ones that I found scientists writing about. To me, it seems likely that any body of water where these types of ships go, there is going to be oil being dumped legally or not. Not only does this violate the international agreement, but it means it's going to impact coasts and all of the people and environmental systems that utilize these coasts, such as beachgoers, fishers, marine life, avian life, and tourists, just to name a few. So what can the world do about this, and what can you personally do about this? Well, at a global level, ship operators have been able to purchase more affordable technology in recent years to better handle this type of waste while they're en route. This is great, but it clearly doesn't solve the issue. And while it's easy for us to point fingers at ship operators and say that they shouldn't do something like this, in many cases it's perfectly legal. So looking at the entire issue, deliberate oil spills should be banned altogether, and countries should do a better job at surveilling their waterways and tracking down and enforcing fines for polluting. Fines should be set based on an amount that it's not worth the risk for ship operators to try and deliberately pollute. But maybe the best way is for all of us to use less oil in the first place. Cutting down on plastic is a popular solution as oil is used to make plastic. However, it's estimated that 4 to 10% of the world's oil goes towards making plastic, and most of this oil isn't shipped via oil tankers. Meaning, cutting down on plastic won't really help to cut down on this issue. If you really want to make an impact, we must target the largest sources of oil use. Of a single barrel of oil, about 47% is used for gasoline and 32% for distillate. What this roughly means is, if we can all cut our diesel and gasoline consumption by about 11 to 21%, it would be more impactful than if the entire world stopped manufacturing plastic forever. Now, to do this, I have a video on tips to save fuel while driving that you could start doing today, and it could save you well over 20% of fuel, so check that out if you're interested. Of course, the best options are driving less, but for a lot of people that isn't a good option. The next best thing you could do, if you could afford to, is to get a hybrid or an electric vehicle. A hybrid is about 20 to 35% more fuel efficient than a gasoline vehicle. So that switch alone could get you that 11 to 21%. And an electric vehicle could reduce oil consumption by 100% if it's switched to something like completely renewable or at least non-oil powered. If you already drive an electric vehicle and charge it at home and want to ensure it's not powered by oil, check out my video on going solar. If you don't think solar is a good fit for you, you can still get 100% renewable electric for your home. Check out the recommendations I have for that in the description below. Otherwise, let me know how you cut down on fuel use in the comments below. If there are topics you'd like to learn about in future videos, let me know in the comments as well. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Go Green Post. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.